There was a baby booty hanging on my front door with a note that said, "Thanks for agreeing to be the dad. You're already in." I'm not exaggerating. I get home, keys in my hand, and there it is. One tiny baby booty clipped to our door like some weird announcement, and a note. My first thought wasn't awe. It was, what the hell is this? Hannah and I live alone. No kids. We've had the maybe someday conversation, sure, but nothing real, nothing planned. And this note, "You're already in," made it sound like I'd signed up for something and just forgot. And then I noticed something that made it even stranger. The note was clipped on with this little metal clip that had a logo on it. North Shore Fertility, a fertility clinic, a place I'd never heard of. So I walk into the kitchen and Hannah's making coffee like it's a normal Tuesday. I try to keep my voice casual, like I'm not internally spiraling. "Hey, did you put something on the door?" She sees the booty in my hand and she doesn't laugh. She doesn't go, "What is that?" She doesn't look confused at all. She goes pale and just says, "That wasn't supposed to show up like that." Which, yeah, not comforting. "What do you mean, show up?" I'm holding up the clip. "From where?" She sets her mug down carefully, like she's afraid the sound of ceramic might set off a bomb. "Sit down, please." And I did. Not because I wanted to. My legs just kind of agreed for me. Okay. So she tells me, a couple months ago, she went to a fertility clinic because her doctor found something and basically told her not to wait around if she wanted kids someday. Honestly, at first I almost felt relieved. Like, okay, this is about health, fear, embarrassment. People keep stuff like that to themselves sometimes. Then she says, "I needed a donor." And I'm like, "A donor? What?" And she goes very quietly, "Sperm." I laughed. I'm not proud of it. It was that weird reflex laugh, like your brain is trying to protect you from a sentence you're not ready to process. "Wait, you did this without telling me?" She stares at the counter and says, "I thought you wouldn't want it. You always dodge the topic. And I was scared if I asked directly, you'd say no, and that would be it." I'm already boiling, but then she drops the part that makes my stomach flip. "But the donor, on paper, it looks like it's you." I just froze. She shows me a letter from the clinic. My name, my birthday, our address, even a signature that looks like mine. And I swear to you, I'd never been there. I hadn't signed anything. So it stops being a relationship argument for a second and turns into something else entirely. Because now I'm thinking, someone is using my identity. I call the clinic right there with Hannah sitting across from me. The receptionist has this calm, normal voice, like I'm asking about appointment hours. "Oh yes, you've been registered as a donor since 2016. Since 2016. I lived in a different state then. I was working two jobs. I was barely keeping my life together. And for like 10 seconds, I actually thought, did I do something back then and forget?" Which sounds stupid, but when someone says it that confidently, your brain starts second-guessing everything. And that's when Hannah quietly goes, "You were living with Cassie then." Cassie, my ex. She had access to everything. My info, my documents, my passwords half the time. And I suddenly remembered this random moment. She came home once, waving an envelope like it was a prize and said, "I found a way for you to finally make money off your potential." At the time, I rolled my eyes. I didn't ask questions. I just wanted less drama. Now I'm thinking, maybe that wasn't just her being weird. The next day I drive to the clinic, alone. Hannah offered to come, but I told her no. I needed to see what was real without her in the room, because at that point I didn't even know what I believed. They bring out my file, and there's an ID copy and a photo. And the photo is close, like it's me, but not me. You know when someone looks like you in a way that makes you uncomfortable. Then the admin says something so casual it almost made me dizzy. Oh, you must have cut your hair. In this photo, you have longer hair. I have never had long hair. Not once in my life. And that's when it clicked. This wasn't me forgetting. This was someone pretending to be me. And if someone looks that much like you, there's usually a reason. I walked out to the parking lot and called my mom. And I asked, like an idiot, because I still couldn't believe I was saying it. Mom, do I have a brother? There was this pause, long enough that I felt my chest go tight. And then she said, how did you find out? Yeah, turns out I do. A half-brother, same dad. His name is Liam. He's about a year older than me. My dad had a whole other life before he disappeared from ours, too. And my mom apparently decided it was better to never bring it up. Which, cool, great plan. Until a fertility clinic is mailing me baby booties. I found Liam through some old contact info tied to my dad. I messaged him. He replied almost immediately, yeah, it's me, and I know who you are. We met at this sad little diner off the highway, and he really did look like me. Just like the version of me that didn't get a break. He sits down and the first thing he says is, you live with Hannah, right? My stomach dropped. How do you know Hannah? He kind of smirks and goes, because I'm involved too. And at that moment, my brain does the most obvious thing. Oh, she cheated. So I ask him straight up, did you sleep with her? He looks at me like I'm 5. No. Then he says, she reached out to me 2 months ago, asked about you, about your health, about kid, and then he adds, like he's tossing a match into gasoline, she chose me as the donor because you can't. I drove home shaking because I didn't even know I couldn't. I walk in and I don't do calm anymore. I just ask, did you know something about me? About fertility? About me not being able to have kids? Hannah starts crying, but not like dramatic crying, more like exhausted. I found your paperwork by accident, she says, in your insurance folder. It said your chances were low. I didn't want to break you. I thought you'd tell me when you were ready. I'm angry, and I'm also weirdly ashamed because part of me knows I've avoided that whole conversation for years. I go, so instead of talking to me, you contacted a brother I didn't even know existed? And she says, I didn't want it to be a stranger. I didn't want it to be random. I wanted it to still be close to you, half of you at least. And I get what she's trying to say. I do. But it also made me feel like I was being replaced in the most polite way possible. Then I ask about the booty. Did you put that on the door? She shakes her head. No. And I got a note too. She pulls out another note, and this one is worse. It says, don't pretend this is your family. I already paid the first deposit. Next steps happen on my terms. Signed, L. Liam. And that's when I realized this wasn't just messy. This was someone trying to force their way into our lives. He'd been messaging Hannah, pushing for meetings, hinting at rights, talking about money, acting like he had leverage. And the worst part? Hannah and I stopped fighting about having kids. We started fighting about him. Every day felt like we were reacting instead of living. And then Hannah does something I didn't expect at all. One night she sits across from me and says, "I'm stopping everything." My heart stops for a second. "Are you pregnant?" She shakes her head. "No, not yet." We were still at the paperwork stage, and then she says, "The booty was a hook." I blink. "A hook?" And she says quietly, "I wanted to see who would panic first, you or Liam. I wanted to see what you'd do when things got ugly." I just stared at her. "So, you tested me?" She nods and she looks embarrassed, but also weirdly certain. "You always avoided the conversation, and I was scared that if we actually had a kid, you'd disappear in the way you do. Not physically, just emotionally. You go quiet, you stall, you say later." And I hated hearing it because, yeah, she wasn't wrong. Then she hits me with the real ending. "I'm leaving," she says. "I'm going to Vancouver, to my sister's. I already bought a ticket." I just sit there like, wait, what? "So that's it?" I ask. She takes a long breath. "I don't want to be the kind of person who runs tests to feel safe," she says. "And I don't want to be with someone who avoids hard conversations until there's no room left." She says it calmly, and somehow that's worse. Before she walks out, she leaves an envelope on the table. I open it after the door closes. Inside are test results, and it says my fertility is normal. Normal. No, you can't. No disaster, no medical doom. And there's a small note from Hannah. "I lied about the paperwork. I wanted you to stop hiding behind, 'What if it doesn't work?' I'm sorry." And then, this part made me feel sick. There's a printed screenshot underneath, a message from my phone to my friend, sent a month earlier at 2:13 a.m. It said, "If she brings up kids again, I'll tell her I'm infertile. She'll drop it." I didn't even remember writing it. I just sat there thinking, I didn't cheat, not physically, but I was literally planning a lie to avoid talking. Like, I was already halfway out the door. I just hadn't walked through it yet. A week later, Liam texts me one last time. "She told me there won't be a baby, so it was all for you. Congrats, you won." "So why are you alone?" I read it and my first impulse was to throw my phone across the room, but then I just sat down because he was right about one thing. I was alone, not because Liam won, but because Hannah and I both kept choosing shortcuts. She chose tests and control, and I chose silence and avoidance. And somewhere in the middle, we stopped being a couple and started being two people trying not to lose. I took that booty off the door and put it in a box. Not as a memory of a kid. There wasn't one. More like proof that later is not a plan, and that if you keep dodging the real conversation long enough, eventually the conversation happens without you. And no, there isn't a neat lesson at the end. I wish there was. It was just one of those stories where, even now, I'm not totally sure which moment actually broke us. Maybe it was the booty, or maybe it was way before that, when we both decided it was easier to test